guys, so I thought I would sit down and do a chatty video. I've been quite rubbish lately with doing videos, and it's been a combo really of working full time and obviously darker nights and stuff like that when I get home, and also I just feel like I haven't had a ton of stuff to say that is sort of more structured, but I've had loads of sort of bookish related thoughts, so I thought why not just sit down and talk about them all in a video. I really like watching people do sort of casual bookish update videos, and I like them when they're both positive and negative, because I find if you see the positive ones it's really great to hear how much people are loving their reading and things that are working for them, but equally if you see people talk about maybe being in a reading slump or reading some rubbish books lately, it's great to know if you're in that situation that you're not alone, other people experience it, and perhaps, you know, other people can give advice, or the people making the video give advice, and then you know, learn something from it if you're in that situation. So this isn't necessarily going to be the most positively bookish video I've ever filmed. In fact, it may be quite a negative one, but I wanted to chat about these things because they've been wearing away my brain, and I feel like it's reached, like, not crisis point, but it's, in terms of like my reading life, it's reached a pretty negative point, and so I just thought it was worth chatting about it really. So I haven't really decided how to order this, so it's going to be all random. Let's start at the start. I know that I think I've sort of pieced this together, and I was saying this to Johnny yesterday actually, because I was saying to Johnny that my reading has been a lot worse this year in terms of the ratings I've been giving. I've given loads of really low ratings. I've barely given any 5-star ratings, and I think I've even struggled giving 4 stars, so I've just been really harsh. And I said to Johnny, I think it's difficult to know whether it's that I'm a harsher reader, and so disregarding star ratings, just in terms of my enjoyment, I'm way more critical than I ever was. And so is it literally that? Is it just that I'm a more critical reader and I'm asking for so much more from the books I pick up that my enjoyment level is way lower than it was before I became so critical? Or is it that and the fact that the books I've been picking up just haven't been as good? I feel like it must be a combination of the two. I think my being critical has certainly had an impact, and I think having the channel affects that, because here's the difference, is if I read a book previously that I loved but had issues with, so for example The Clay Girl by Heather Tucker, I loved that book. When I was reading it I sped through it, I felt so connected to it, and it was one of those books I got fully immersed in and was just in for the time I was reading it, and whenever I wasn't reading it I was thinking about those characters and couldn't wait to get back to them. But there was a few things that I felt negatively about, and if I didn't have the channel and didn't have the necessity to think more deeply about something before I talk to you guys about it and before I review something, then perhaps those negative things wouldn't bother me so much, because I just think, hey, I really love that book, I had so much fun reading it, there's a few annoying things, but you know, whatever. Whereas because I feel like if I do a review that's out there, and if other people then go and read that book and pick up on that issue more than I did, and I'm the one who said to everyone go and read it, then I'll feel guilty for not having highlighted that negative points. Then it becomes a bigger thing in my head. So I think it's a combo of me being a harsher reader, and I think that's just a natural thing of reading way more than I used to, and also having so much more awareness of things to be critical of because of BookTube. Now I'm completely okay with that. I'm really happy to be a much more aware reader than I was 5 years ago, and I think some of that is certainly, I think the majority of that is BookTube, and I think some of that is just age, and I've become more, you know, aware of lots of different things, but I think a lot of that has been has stemmed from BookTube and watching other people's channels. So I'm completely fine with being more aware of tropes, more aware of things that are offensive to myself or to others, and I'm glad about that, but it does mean that I enjoy books less because I'm way more likely to notice something that bothers me as an individual or me as a member of society. So I'm more critical for those reasons, but also I'm just more critical, you know, in terms of writing style and character development because I read a lot more. So yeah, over the time of having my channel, I recently have noticed that I've had quite a poor reading year. And actually I would say I've had a quite a bad reading year. And that makes me feel really sad because obviously reading is my favourite thing. And I actually started to think the other day, maybe reading isn't even that good, which is an awful thing to think, right? Because I love reading, but at the moment I don't feel like I do love reading. And it's probably the only time in my life I felt like saying that, like I've always felt like I love reading. But at the moment, I feel like 90% of the reading I do is just mediocre. And it's not standout. And I don't want every single book I read to be phenomenal, that isn't what I'm asking for. But I'd like, you know, for there to be a majority of the books I read that I feel like were worth my time. And actually, I was looking back through the list of books I'd read this year and thinking, if somebody said to me, you can still have read that book and still have it in your head and have experienced it in that moment, or you can gain back X amount of hours that you spent reading that book to read another book. So many books this year, the majority I would give back, I'd cash back in that time to read other books, which is awful, isn't it? Because I should be able to look back and think, you know, no, that was really worth reading. And I'm not sure quite how many books I've read, maybe like 110, something like that. But I feel like I could so easily discount like 90 of them, which is awful. So yeah, so I think I am starting to realise that obviously a lot of it is to do with me being more critical, but I also think that I've just had a bad year in terms of what I picked up. I don't think it's all just me, I think it is the books as well. So about 6 weeks ago I decided to get rid of my favourite shelf on Goodreads. So basically quite a few years ago when I first started the channel, people were asking me to do a favourite books video, which I was always very wary about because I feel like it's so changeable. So I did the video and I've left it up, but it's always something I feel quite uncomfortable about because my concern is sometimes people watch it now and they'll comment talking about some of the books I mentioned and saying that's my favourite book too. And now, all these years later, it's a book that maybe I don't feel like is my favourite, but I know that when people watch a video they don't always necessarily check the date it was uploaded, which is fine. But obviously, I sort of have, not a policy, but I like to leave videos up there that I may not now agree with. Obviously, if there's something offensive in them and I realise, you know, afterwards that I've said something offensive, then I would remove it. But I don't remove videos because my taste has now changed, because I feel like part of the point in having a booktube channel is to sort of make almost a diary of your changing tastes, and I like that. I wish I could add a little note from present me in some videos saying I may not think this now, but you know, I just leave it as it is. So that video still stands, but I had a Goodreads shelf to match. So I had a favourite books of all time shelf, which I have since got rid of. A lot of those books I read when I was 16 or 17, that was 10 years ago. I haven't read them since. You know, I have no idea if I'd read them now and they stand the test of time. I might think they were rubbish. I'm a lot different reader now to who I was then. I'm, you know, a different person almost to who I was then. So I decided to get rid of that shelf, but what I did feel confident in doing is to make a favourite shelf for each year since I've been on BookTube. And that's obviously made a lot easier by the fact that I always do a favourite books of the year video. So what I did was I went back and checked those favourite books of the year videos, and I put the books from that video onto a shelf, but then I removed the ones that I felt hadn't stood the test of time since I'd read them. So there might have been some books that I'd been like, these are my favourite books of the year, and now I watched them and thought, they don't deserve to be on that video, they haven't stood the test of time like the other ones. Because, you know, sometimes when you rave and rave and rave about a book, I think a lot of it is to do with how recently you've read it, and I think the real question is if they, you know, stand the test of time. So I made those shelves, and they are slightly different, as I say, some of them, to the actual videos. But what I realised in making those shelves is I've never forced myself to have a certain number of books in the video. I may have done right at the start of my channel, but in recent years I've always just put as many books as I feel like deserve to be on there. So last year I made two videos. I made the top, which only had 5 or 6 books in, and then I made like a secondary which had a group of books which I thought were still really, really great. And previous years I've just done one video. So what I realised is that last year I only put 7 books on the Goodreads shelves, but But I think it was in 2015 maybe, I had a really, I can look because I've got my phone right here. So in 2015 I had a really good reading year, and I put 12 books on my favourite reads shelf on 2015. And when I looked at those books, I was like, God, that was such an amazing year. And then I had a look back through books that I'd given 4 stars that year, and even they were so amazing. And obviously I haven't reread these books, so, you know, I could read them now and perhaps not feel like the same, but it was only a couple of years ago. And so, yeah, I do just think I've had a bit of a rubbishy year. And it saddens me because I don't know if I've always said this thing, which probably isn't true, but when we've been together for about 11 years now, and when we were first together we watched loads and loads and loads of films, and we have gradually watched less and less films, and we still watch films but nowhere near as many as we used to. And sometimes we say to one another, oh, maybe we've gone through phases where we've been feeling a bit like about films, and we've been like, or TV, and we've sort of said, I think particularly with TV, we'll say to one another, perhaps we've just watched all the amazing stuff out there. And I don't think that's the case. You know, we have a watch later list that's ridiculously long, but sometimes that's how I've started to feel about books. I'm like, have I just read all the great stuff out there? Which obviously isn't the case. And I've got around 260 owned books that I haven't read, and I'm even starting to feel a bit like about them, like a bit unexcited to pick them up, which is really sad. So I think it's all just sort of snowballing, and I'm just starting to feel generally negative about reading. And because of that, I've barely read anything. So this month I've listened to an audiobook, and I've read 2 very small non-fiction, and I've read The Chamber of Secrets in illustrated edition. That's all. So yeah, it's been pretty poor, and I'm not really sure how to rectify it. I certainly want to carry on doing non-fiction November, so that's my plan. I may not manage to read anywhere near as many as I'd like to, because I look at the books and I really want to read them, but then I just don't feel like reading, and I'm just watching TV and YouTube instead. And yeah, I just feel like I'm not getting as much out of reading as I always have. And I think it's all just linked into this sort of negative feeling I have about it. So yeah, so my plan is in December I'll have 4 books left of my 5-star TBR predictions. I'm gonna try read those 4 before the new year, and then I'm just gonna pick up whatever I fancy really. And then yeah, I'm hoping that next year will be a new year. I am a pretty harsh DNFer, but I'm going to become an even harsher DNFer. There's so many books that I finished this year that I gave 3 stars to, and 3 stars is good, but I don't want the majority of stuff I read to be 3 stars. And I found like the majority of stuff I've read has been 3 or 2 stars, which is shit. So I'm just going to DNF way quicker, and yeah, I'm just going to be a lot harsher. And even like towards the second half of the year, I've been a lot harsher with like unrequested review copies I've been sent. I've always been quite picky, but I've got even pickier, and if I don't feel like it's something I really want to read, it just instantly isn't put on the shelves, it's not kept. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a combo of everything. So as well as all this stuff going on, I really want to try and reduce the amount of books I own. And part of the reason for that is sort of tied in with all the other stuff I've said, is that I feel like some of these books I bought in the first year of my channel, which is 5 years ago in January. I think it's 5 years. Pretty sure it's 5 years. So that means that 22-year-old me was interested in those books. Now 27-year-old me may not be as interested in those books. Now I have culled my shelf. About 2 months ago I went for a massive cull. I took about 80 books off my shelf. I was like, do you know what? I want to reduce the amount of books I own. I'm not that excited about these. Get rid of them. So I did. So all the ones I've kept, you know, have been checked quite recently. So I'm happy with the ones I have on there. That's fine. But, you know, I just want to be able to read a book when I first get it and I'm really excited. You know, some books I've bought because they're all about a certain topic. You know, I bought lots of books that were based on islands or in cold countries last Christmas and still haven't read them. And if I'd read them at the time and had that first buzz, it would have been more exciting. And so I just want to reduce the amount of books I own so that I can have, you know, when I first get books and have that initial fizzy feeling about them, that that isn't fizzled away, because that is what's happened for the majority of books I own. You know, there's some of these books that I was like, oh my god, this sounds amazing, I have to read this, and now I'm just like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it, because the excitement's gone. And that's why I don't want to own as many books as I own. It's not anything to do with the space or anything really. It's literally because I want to maintain that excitement more, and I just haven't. So my plan for next year is I've got around 266 around. I've got exactly 266 unread books on my shelves. I want to get that to 250 by the new year. I think that's doable. And I always get a couple of weeks off at Christmas because the university closes. So I will manage that. And, well, I say I'll manage that. I'm barely reading. I hope I'll manage that. I hope I'll get a boost and start wanting to read a lot again. So if you do follow me on Goodreads and you can be bothered, because I understand if you can't, then do feel free to check my Goodreads out. I have a shelf called, I think, TBR Books I Own. Do feel free to go and have a look at what I've got, and if you have any books, you see any books on that shelf that are your absolute favourites, tell me to read them, convince me, because I need to get excited about stuff and I'm not excited, which is really awful. Like books that I was super excited about, I'm just like, which is awful. So yeah, so my plan is for next year to try and just keep reducing the amount of books I own so I can get closer to that fizzy tummy feeling of new book excitement and being able to read a new book within 2 months. That is my long-term goal, to be able to read every book I get within 2 months of it arriving. And also my plan for next year, another thing I want to try and do is to try and read more non-fiction. I have so many non-fiction books I have on a to read list. I'm way more excited about picking non-fiction books up at the moment than I am fiction. Don't know why. And I feel like a lot of it is because there's so much awful, crazy stuff going on in the world in the last couple of years. And I feel like I'm lacking context in all of it, and so I just really want to learn as much as I can. So a lot of the books I'm really interested in picking up are sort of informative books, giving me like historical, social or political context for things that are happening. So another thing I'd like to do next year is read more non-fiction, but how I want to try and do that is I want to try and read a few books about a topic and then to maybe do a group chat about those books. So I want to do that because I have, like I said, a lack of knowledge in the majority of things in the world. And so I feel like just reading one book is quite a narrow focus, perhaps a biased viewpoint. So my plan is to, you know, if I want to read about a certain topic I can't think of an example at the moment, but if I want to read about a certain topic, I want to pick up several books on that topic and then to do a chatty video talking about those books. So that's a plan I have, and I'm 100%, and this is where it gets difficult because I want to reduce the amount of books I own, but also because I'm starting to feel quite negative about books, I just want to reread stuff that I know I love, because then I know it'll be fine. And also, I used to love rereading when, like, years and years and years ago. I'd reread every book so many times, and I just haven't done that for years, and I used to adore it. I used to love the reread more than the initial read because it's like revisiting friends. So I really want to try and do that, and I know that will slow down my reduction of the books I own and haven't read, but I'm sort of okay with that. I hope it will give me a balance of reminding me why I love reading. So this has been really long and rambly. I hope it's not been too negative. I just wanted to be honest as to why probably my wrap-up's going to be really small, why I'm not doing many reviews, and why perhaps there's a lack of videos because I haven't really got a ton of bookish stuff to say. And just, yeah, just sort of be honest about, because I think even if I was a viewer I'd have noticed that, you know, I usually do videos where I'm like, oh my god, these 3 books are amazing, and there hasn't been much of that this year. Maybe one video. So yeah, I'm unsure as to whether I'm even going to do a favourite books of the year video at this point, to be completely honest, because I feel like the calibre of the books that I'd class as this year's favourite wouldn't match up to any of the previous year's favourites. Maybe like 2 of them would, but not the rest. So yeah, I'm unsure, so do let me know if you still think that's worth doing. I might do another type of video where I, you know, still highlight them but don't put them up against previous years, I don't know. So that's that. Thanks for watching and listening to me have a whinge. But yeah, like I say, I find these videos interesting for other people, and so I'm hoping that you guys can You know, let me know if you felt this way. Let me know if you think it's to do with me being more critical or just having a rubbishy year, or, you know, in terms of the actual books themselves. Is it me or is it the books? Or is it both? I think it's both, but I'd be interested to hear if you've been in a situation and if you think it's you or the books. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't know what it will be at this point, but I will see you then. Bye.